Hello, welcome to the Happiness of Pursuit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raj Langani, and today I have a very special guest, an author of one of my favorite books, the iconic No More Mr. Nice Guy. And this is Dr. Robert Glover. How are you today, Robert?
I'm well. It's good to visit with you. I love the title of your podcast, and I love how you spell it too.
Yes, sir. I thought you might because, and we'll go into that in a bit, but a lot of what the message I get from your book is don't be attached to the outcomes, suffering, attachment suffering, and
Yeah.
life's an adventure. And wake up every day. It's going to be an adventure. That's something that's really helped me
Yeah.
a lot, on especially
Yeah.
on tough days to get out of bed.
Well, one of my favorite mantras is I love starting my day not knowing how it's going to end. And I love that when life is an adventure every day. And some people they actually get mad at me when I talk with them about how attachment to outcome leads to suffering and anxiety. And I go, I didn't make this up. Buddha said this 3,000 years ago. And they go, why would I even get out of bed if I didn't have an attachment to paying my bills or doing this? And I go, actually, I find the people with less attachment actually tend to live bigger lives. They say yes
That's the truth.
to a lot more things.
Yes, yes, for sure. And I appreciate you saying yes to coming on today because it's like truly an honor. Like I said, your book has really helped me and tons of my patients, both men and women. And I was wondering, like, that was one question I had for you. How much do you hear from women about your book, your program, or what you do, your mission?
Yeah, I do actually. It's kind of maybe curious, funny that when the book got published 20 something years ago, the publisher Barnes and Noble, I think was hoping there'd be some kind of pushback, from women that like, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You're like, why would anybody write a book teaching men to be not nice? There's enough
Or
not
or
nice
you're or
guys
you're like
out there.
alienating, or you're like alienating half the market on a
Yeah,
business
well,
side of
and there was never the
it.
pushback because it's
Right.
not at all anti-female. But the emails that I get from a lot of women are things like, I can relate to the book, I can see myself in it. I was at a retreat last week up in Northern California, and first day, this young woman, says, "Hey, Dr. Glover, we hadn't gotten started yet." He said, "I love your book. I read it. I gave it to my father." I found out later she's like 26 years old. So here's a young woman, liked my book, gave it to her father. And that's the kind of response that I tend to get is women can see their own codependent patterns, their own giving to get, their own covert contracts, all that in No More Mr. Nice Guy. And they often see other men in their lives, their father, their exes. You wouldn't believe how many men tell me, yeah, I found your book when my ex gave it to me." Women finally go, That's why we're not married anymore," and give them the book. So women in general really seem to like the book. The only occasional exception to that rule is usually a
The
really
hardcore
long.
feminist.
No, the hardcore feminists,
They
I
like it
haven't
too.
I haven't really heard a peep. Every now and then, I'll see something online. I don't read online comments, but every now and then somebody will say something like, "Well, you're totally screwed up on gender or this or that thing." But you know what? The only real pushback are the really long emails from a woman who basically said, "My boyfriend or husband read your book and he left me because of your book." And I'm reading, just they go on forever, ever and ever, and I'm thinking, run, Forrest, run. I can see maybe why that guy decided to leave. And of
Yeah,
course she did.
if he thinks it was getting knowledge from a book that led him to
No,
leave,
there were
then
probably
and it's your
many
fault.
things. Yeah, there were probably many things in that relationship that maybe
Right.
needed to end, and maybe the book just gave the guy the courage. Maybe he didn't do it in the most conscious or direct way, but I don't think the book is what caused the relationship to end.
Right. And I mean, it benefits women too. They want masculine men. They want to be in their feminine, right?
Yeah, and again, I've not gotten negative pushback, and I don't talk a lot in No More Mr. Nice Guy about masculine, feminine. I do in later work that I've done.
Right. I just read The Big
Um,
Stick. So I guess that was one of your maybe
Big stick,
disciples.
yeah, because one of my coaches, Tony Endelman,
Right.
co-wrote that with me, and he is a way to condense a lot more of my
Mm-hmm.
courses and my other teaching beyond No More Mr. Nice Guy. So in Big Stick,
Ah,
there
I
is a
see.
lot more about the positive emotional tension, masculine, feminine
Mm-hmm.
energies. And yeah, when I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy, my then wife was very supportive of writing it. My now present wife is Mexican, and she's read the Spanish version of it, and she loves what I do with men. She knows I'm making the world a better place. And so yeah, really the big picture is that almost without exception, women have been supportive of the work that I do. I'm teaching men to be honest, to be transparent, to be conscious, to be purposeful. uh, you know, what's there to complain about that? And
Yeah.
I know some people will project their, on the name, no more Mr. Nice Guy. That must be this. It must be that. So anybody that does send me a negative message, I usually tell them read the book. Um,
Yeah. No,
so
I
if you,
mean
if you
it's an
read it,
amazing title. It's so catchy. It's so good. It's like, and I just really wanted to get into that. Let's start with that. Like, I think we got to tell everyone about what nice guys are, and you mentioned a lot of key terms. So do nice guys have to finish last? Are there ways to make it better?
y- you know, honestly, most of the time, no, nice guys don't finish last. I actually have a course that I wrote 20 something years ago, just before No More Mr. Nice Guy was going to be published. Again, the publisher Barnes and Noble had something they call Barnes and Noble University. They've since gone bankrupt and restructured and all that kind of stuff. But where they got people who'd written books to
I never
teach
heard of that.
courses, and yeah, they don't do it anymore. And
Right.
so they contracted with me to put together a course based on the book, but they wanted it to be something beyond just what the book taught. So I did it
Mhm.
about business, and I titled the course "Nice Guys Don't Finish Last; They Rot in Middle Management." And
Right.
the basic premise is, and I say
The
this
deep,
in
or
in
like the deep state, I guess, in the common terms, or more
I,
popular terms,
I guess I
middle
don't know what
management.
deep state. I don't know what deep state means.
Oh, okay. There's some, the politicians. We're in the politics. We might touch on it just because we're in a election season that brings up so much psychological stuff. But
Yeah.
in systems therapy and systems theory and everything. But like basically this idea of the D state, which is really just these all these middle managers that are in the bureaucracy, basically.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, that
so
happens.
sorry
That
about it. Go
happens.
ahead. Sorry.
So,
But
so
I hear just damage you. They're not out there leading and so on.
the
They're in
point
middle
is, yeah,
management.
that I say that nice guy, and again, that's not a poke at middle management, but what it is just a way of saying
Yeah.
nice guys are good at being good, but often not great at being great. Now, I just got, I talked with a guy today that's going to come to work with me, and he's just recently retired, and he ran a multi-million-dollar company, he was CEO. And I do work with some nice guys that are really highly successful in business. But he said basically, unfortunately, what made me good at business was terrible for my marriage. And
Mm,
so sometimes we can, we'll get good at certain areas, but to really level up in all areas of life is pretty challenging, especially because for the nice guy, there's a number of things that happen. Nice guys often have what I call self-limiting beliefs. They just go, well,
mhm.
who am I to, to,
Yep.
to accomplish this? Who am I to write a book? Who am I to launch a podcast? Who am I, to go to med school? Who am I?
Hmm.
Who am I to get, that pretty woman? So there's a self-limiting beliefs. There's often also nice guys tend to procrastinate a lot too. So it's hard to get a lot of things done if you're kind of always putting it off till later.
Yep.
But probably the biggest piece is nice guys often get caught up in seeking external validation, and because of that, they're often not pioneers. Just going, I'm taking the risk. I'm going for it.
Hmm.
I think this will work. I'm going to speak
Yep.
up. I'm going to, I worked with previously a guy who was really high up at a major airline production company, and
Hmm.
I mean like really high, up in the C office, and he was working with me, and he worked with me for a while. And he decided, okay, I've had enough. I think basically he said, I've come to enough sessions to get my wife off my back. And he goes,
Right.
but I'm going to kind of miss you. And I go, why are you going to miss me? And he goes, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people that just, tell me yes all the time and don't ever. And he goes, you're the only piece of person that ever calls me out in my life. And I go, yeah, also, why are you leaving? And so, um, that ability to take risk, to be
Yep.
bold, to go for it, to not just follow the standard. Most nice guys don't want to take that risk. And then maybe the other piece of it is that another way to phrase nice guy is simply codependency. Now, I
Mhm.
didn't use the word codependent when I wrote No More Mr. Nice Guy
Right.
intentionally.
Right.
Prior to that time, nobody had really talked about
Yeah, I
codependency
was gonna
in
say
men.
that because right, exactly.
If you picked up a book, it was written either for a partner of an addict, like a drug addict or alcoholic.
Hmm.
That's where the word first came from. It was a
Right.
person who was codependent on the addict. Then it started being applied to women, and there are books like Women Who Love Too Much, things like that.
Right.
But
Right.
nobody addressed it in men. So, but that's what it is. I just
And
wanted to
even
write a.
even then, like a lot of these terms, because social media have now become so popularized,
Oh
sometimes
yeah,
incorrect, with boundaries. Everyone's a narcissist.
everybody's a diagnostician now. I joke
Right.
that on social media, every woman that breaks up with a guy, he was either a sociopath or a narcissist, and every guy that breaks up with a woman, she was either a narcissist or borderline personality.
Yeah.
And I'm going, we've all become armchair diagnosticians. So,
Yeah.
but nice guy syndrome is codependency. And another word that I actually like better for codependency is a term called borrowed functioning, which
Ooh,
basically means I get my identity. I only
yeah.
exist and have meaning based on my relationship with you, of how you
Yeah.
need
It's
me, or how
enmeshment.
it
Hmm.
is fusion, it's enmeshment. Now, there's the problem when it comes to, finishing last or finishing first. If you spend a lot of time enmeshed in other people's problems, trying to fix things for people, trying to solve things, trying to, you know, make sure they're always happy and you always have their approval, you're not going to get very far because
Hmm.
it's pretty time consuming to get caught up in solving everybody else's problems for them. And I've done a good bit of that in my own life. And it's
Yeah.
interesting when you can let go and let other people solve their own problems. And then it kind of forces you, what do I do now? I guess I can't waste time solving problems. You kind of get to work on your own stuff. So I know the less
It's interesting. Yeah. And
codependent I become, the higher functioning I become.
right, right. And this is, I mean, I'm a quintessential nice guy. I just did your quiz on your website. That's
Uh-huh.
90-second, or the challenge for the 90-day challenge from you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
You
yeah,
have like a
yeah.
10-question quiz. And it was like I was which I knew this already, but it was like poster boy, nice guy. And
Poster
you
boy,
talk
nice guy.
yeah, yeah. And I would say, like, as someone who's a doctor, like my parents are doctors, and like in our culture, it's a lot about safety. So there's like other factors too, culturally, that can lead to a nice guy. And we can kind of talk into some
Well,
predisposing
I
factors and
believe me,
so on,
I'm
since
going to
we're both in the
assume.
mental health.
So are you from an Indian culture?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Raj,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
John
I
and
know.
we're good.
That was
So
my guess.
tough dads.
Eh,
Yeah, we tend to have tough dads. Tough dads work a lot. You gotta A minus, not good enough.
Not good
It's
enough.
gotta be
And you
higher,
got to go
and
to a
mom.
prestigious university. You got to be an engineer. Got to be a medical doctor. Then you got to go
Right,
work for
right.
you got to go work for
Yes.
Google or go work for Stanford or go work for MIT because mom and dad want bragging
Yes.
rights with all their friends. Oh, Raj got his degree from Stanford. Oh,
Yes.
Ash went to MIT. Or
Yep.
and then they want to retire at
Yeah,
45
that's
and
with
you
my
take care
Dartmouth
of them,
degree.
right?
Yes, that's the one that they're gonna mention, not the two state schools. They're gonna mention the Dartmouth degree.
The private, yeah,
For exactly
so
right. You
I've
you
got
undercover Indian too?
no, I've worked with a lot of Indian men who come into American culture,
Yes.
and they're usually doctors or engineers. I've got one of my guys working with me on Integration Nation, my men's program, who lives in Pune, and
Yeah.
he got
For
an
real?
MBA. His name is Siddharth, and I said,
Uh-huh.
Sid, your parents must have been so embarrassed of you when you got an MBA. And he goes, they must have wanted to disown you. And he goes, no,
Yes.
my dad had a PhD in economics. And I go, oh, his dad disowned him then because he didn't go become an engineer or a
Yeah.
doctor. And he said, my
For
mom's got a
real.
PhD in English. So it's still that high achieving. You got to
Yes.
make the family proud. You got to take care of us in our old age. We got to give us bragging rights. I've heard the story. I know how it goes.
Yeah. And even like really big, people who make it really, really big, like some of the top companies in America, they talk about that. Like my parents were disappointed I didn't go to med school at least he became an engineer and now like one of the rich people in the world, like at Google or Microsoft. But
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
you
Why,
get
why
definitely the
aren't you working at
comedians.
Google? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Big comedians or podcasters, it's like you haven't done the brown person checklist yet of checking that
no.
box of being a doctor or whatever. So, but
Being a
yeah,
good
so
being a good businessman, no, 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 that's embarrassing.
no, so I was gonna say
The
exactly.
entrepreneur, no, 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 no,
So
you're
I would put
embarrass us.
doctor along and like going along. That's another example of the external validation because when it was
It
like
is.
Wall Street, go big, and now entrepreneurial at least. So that's good. I'm like getting to do that and take those risks
Okay.
a little more. But even as a doctor, right? But in business and or doctor, like doctor's the safe route, like safety basically. And it's like everything's be safe, be conservative, which and has its like good parts to it too, for sure, in terms of like trying to achieve and it helped like what got me there doesn't now serve me well in relationships and business, etc.
Yeah, I had a client a few years ago. He's a young man. He was Pakistani. His parents, I think, were first generation Pakistani in the U.S. And his dad wanted him to go to med school. And this guy, for 2 years, was in college, telling his father he was pre med.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of it was he was a musician. He wanted to make music, and he wasn't even going to college because he literally was afraid his dad would kill him if he
Mm-hmm.
found out he wasn't in college to be pre-med. And the guy wanted to be a musician. He wanted to make music, but there just wasn't the room for that. And he was terrified to tell his parents the truth. So there's that nice guy
That's really
pattern
real.
that
That's
we've
very
got to,
real.
it's real. It's very real of, and again, it might be more pronounced in you kind of your class of Indian family, Pakistani family.
Mm-hmm.
But around the world is that so many people and so many nice guys are underachieving, playing way below their potential because they're too afraid to take a risk. And they're too afraid they might fail. They might feel like a failure. Their parents, I was listening to um um Alex Horazi, I'm saying his
Mm-hmm.
name wrong.
Alex
And
Hormozy. Yeah.
Hermosi, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
Hermosi,
Mm-hmm.
on an interview with Chris Williamson a while back. And
Uh-huh.
basically, he couldn't even tell his father that he
Yep.
was changing, that he was going to go open a gym because, he's going to leave the business world that he was in just because his father would have had such a negative. So,
Yeah.
it,
Yeah, I met him a few weeks ago. I remember he talks about like I met him at acquisition.com in Vegas and he's a
okay.
super nice guy, as big and as smart as, all his content, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so he talks about, yeah, like he basically got to a point where he didn't care if he woke up the next day. And at that point, it's like the pain outweighs the fear of
Yeah.
disappointing dad or whatever, the disappointing, I guess is the best way to put it. You're not going to get the
Yeah.
validation from the people you grew up thinking like that's the most important thing when you're a kid. You haven't learned yet necessarily like they don't necessarily know what's best for you and so on.
Well, it really what we're talking about is something called emotional fusion, and I love this
Mm,
subject, and very few people talk about it. One of my favorite authors is recently passed away a couple of years ago, Dr. David Snarch, who wrote a book
uh-huh.
called Passionate Marriage, and
Right.
um and based on uh, another leading researcher came a few years before him. I got to hear him speak while I was in graduate school. But I think fusion and differentiation are so important because all pack animals, tribe animals, herd animals, fuse, and it's part of how we survive in difficult situations, whether it's a flock of birds, a pack of dogs, a tribe of humans. And so at one time in our existence, we basically needed to be communal, to sacrifice parts of ourself for the well-being of the tribe, because if the tribe was strong and healthy, it could take care of us. We couldn't go
Mm-hmm.
take care of ourselves as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that tribes, herds, packs have always worked is around anxiety and how anxiety is unconsciously communicated between animals. And it's through what's, as probably mirror neurons in the brain that if a mother smiles at a baby, the baby will often smile back. If the mom scowls at the baby will cry. And same thing. My dog knows if my wife and I aren't feeling well. She knows if we're having a fight. The dog senses the energy of it. And so, like, birds on a wire, if one bird gets startled, they all get startled. The anxiety is communicated, even if all the birds weren't startled by the same thing as one bird.
Right.
The old TV westerns, when you have the stampede of the cows, one cow gets spooked by a snake or lightning or the
Hmm.
bad guy shooting a gun, then they all get spooked. Okay, that's actually life preserving in many ways if anxiety can be
Sure.
transmitted across the group. Because, like, if there was a tiger in the bushes there and one of us had an
Hmm.
anxiety response, it'd be good if that's
Yeah.
communicated to everybody
That
else.
makes sense with like mirror neurons, like how we one reason it would make sense evolutionarily to like pick up people's energy and emotion, all
And
that.
it serves a purpose, and we do. We
Correct.
can pick up people's. We can pick
Of
up people's.
absolutely.
I'm not. I don't really see myself as real empathic. I know my ex-wife was. She could sense people's feelings. My present wife, Lupita, I can feel their intentions. I know what they, I go,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, good for you." But I know, for example, if I'm like back when I was in private practice, if somebody walked in my office and
Yeah.
immediately I felt a headache, I learned to ask. I go, by
Yeah.
chance, do you have a headache? Oh yeah, it's been just hurting all day. I picked it up. I felt it. And
Yeah.
that's not woo-woo. It actually happens. And it was a life-preserving part of being part of a tribe, a pack. Now,
Yeah.
here's the problem. We don't necessarily need that to survive anymore, but
Hmm.
still to this day, because it's wired into our nervous system,
Yeah.
anxiety is contagious. I had one of my coaches say one time to speaking to a group of men, he told the men, every fear you have, you learned from your mother. Because if you think about it, you're this
Yeah.
dependent, needy little child, and your mother's your caregiver. You
Yep.
depend on her to survive, to live. Whatever she's anxious about, you're going to get her anxieties. Now, what happens is culture, religion, family, consciously or unconsciously, uses that anxiety transmission to control people and manage
Right.
them, to keep
Yeah.
them within homeostatic systems, usually
Sure.
so that the people in power get to stay in power, whether, again, that's culture,
Right.
religion, or family.
Sure.
So that they will play on our anxiety state. So to truly be what's called differentiated, i.e., to be able to ask yourself, what do I want? What's important to me? What's right to me? What's my direction? What's my faith? What's my purpose? What's my passion? You have to be able to do something called differentiation. You have to be able to, number one,
Hmm.
ask yourself, what do I want? What's important to me? But number two, you have to then be able to get on that path and stay on it, even when we have anxiety and neurotic guilt between our ears that we're doing something wrong, or
Hmm.
we get the change back messages from the culture, the religion, the family, the people around us to say, oh, you're going to give dad a heart attack. You're making mom cry. Oh, you're going to, it's going to end up in disaster. You're going to feel like such a fool. All those messages play on the anxiety that this has been passed down to us since infancy. And so that's another reason we tend to stay stuck is that if we think what we do might upset in some way our fused emotional systems, usually
Hmm.
family, mom, dad, siblings, could be a partner, wife,
Yeah.
girlfriend, husband. It could be a group of friends we're in, could be the church we're in, it could be culture we're in. It's it takes a lot of work, and
So
it
isn't
takes,
it,
I think,
and
some support systems to break out of that.
yeah, I'm still honestly, I'm the 41. I'm a doctor. I'm married. I got two kids. But like that is so hardwired with you. And I know you've talked about being a recovering nice guy as well. But I'll offer
Yeah,
this piece
that's
and you can
me.
tell me
That's
if you've
me.
had this experience as well. Because I relate to, I'm one of those people that read your book and like, is this about me? You know? And so when it's so hardwired since you're young, like we moved around a lot because my parents were in training, and so you're trying to fit in, and you're very good at scan environment. On top of it, genetics, of course, biology of temperament, of empath, being an empath, like picking up people's
Sure,
energy. But you're also like it's the monkey mind. You want to fit in. If your dad's kind of very, tough and strict, and mom's more, you know soft, permissive, that kind of classic authoritarian,
hmm
not authoritative, and permissive, then you're gonna kind of be like with mom more. Mama's boy. I'm a mom's boy. When I go
me
visit my
too.
parents,
I
like a couple weeks ago, we
e-
talked for
every every
hours.
every woman. Every woman I've ever been with says, I think your mother is jealous of me. And I go, yeah, you're right. Every woman I've been with says that. So it's probably true.
Yeah, yeah. So, you learn female validation, you add on a couple of these things like that. That's probably a major one. I know you talk about, like, obviously parents, mom, Freud, it all starts there. But then you got your temperament, then and genetics there and biology, and then you got like your situations you've been in, any trauma, big T or little T, or just
Sure.
tough situations you've been through, and they kind of compound in each other where you're like, just get along, go along to get along, don't want
Sure.
conflict. Uh, you do get a lot of rewards that you get told you're good, and your mom telling everyone you're nice, and it's all a very good thing.
Yeah,
Like,
your mom brags about you to your friends. I mean,
and
my
and you're
mother can't give me a compliment to save my life, but if I go to visit her church with her, everything I've done, all her friends know about. She tells them,
yeah, exactly.
what I've done,
And you're
but
caring more about
can't give
women
me
are
the
thinking.
compliment.
Yeah, you're caring about more what
Sure.
women are thinking because
Eh,
you're learning that from them. All your teachers, as you mentioned, your nanny, daycare, all the teachers, they're all women. When you mentioned that, I was like, that's true, they are. And it makes
Yeah.
sense, the predisposing nature of it. And the kids growing up today, the young men, because I am child adolescent psychiatrist and adult, so I see all ages and families. And you
Oh,
see it's
okay.
even more
Okay.
geared that way. Their dads are nice guys too, unlike maybe like our dads were maybe more masculine, working more. Now it's like they're nice guys too. So the model to follow is also that. Like we might have been, or at least me, like, all right, I don't want to be this way. I want to be like, so you might go swing too far the other way, right? To nice guy because you don't want to be tough.
And
Yeah, and we could talk about that, but today they're actually getting that as a model too sometimes. So I was going to ask you, like,
yeah.
for now raising my son, try to be the integrated man, of course, work toward that and teach him and keep him off social media. Like, do you have any other advice about how for young people like my son, like this Gen Z, to keep them from being, uh, having the pitfalls of nice guy
Y-
syndrome?
a lot of dads, and this is a good question to ask. A lot of dads ask me, well, what can I do to prevent my son from being a nice guy? And, I try to reframe the question because, in a sense, I don't know that you want to try to prevent your kid from being anything. Yeah, that'd be like saying, well, how can I prevent my kid from being gay? Or how can I prevent my kid from being a Republican or being a Democrat? I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's the goal. I think the goal is to be more supportive of them differentiating,
Hmm.
to support who are they? What's meaningful to them? Because again, as we've talked about, in your heritage, there's this real narrow structure that, your parents are forcing that you make good grades, you either go to engineering school or you go to medical school, blah, blah. That real narrow structure. Some children don't get any structure at all. And so I think both are harmful to have that narrow structure that you have to be this way
Yeah.
to no structure whatsoever. And so on my program, the Integration Nation, we have guest speakers come on there. And we had a guy speak just last night, Dr. Warren Farrell, who wrote a
Hmm.
book called The Myth of Male Power years ago. And he's got a book out now called The Boy Crisis.
Yep. Yep.
And he said when he started putting the boy crisis together, he was sharing this last night. I think he said there were like 16, you know, vulnerabilities in boys, all the way from, depression to poor grades to suicide to obesity to aggression. And he said they had about 10 contributing factors to these. And he said as they started just narrowing it down and just statistically, data driven, narrowing it down, he said the key number one factor in how well a boy does in life is father, it's dad. Is
Hmm.
dad available? Does the boy have a safe, supportive relationship with his father? Does his father spend time communicating? And Dr. Farrell says in the boy crisis, the number one thing a father can do is have it once a week, at least once a week, just be completely available for his son, for his kids at a meal.
Hmm.
At a meal. Now, I used to, for
Yeah.
me, a big one used to be that when my son and stepson were teenagers, they're both 39, 40 now, is it
Hmm.
driving in a car? They one be in the front seat or they both be in the back seat. I would just listen to their
Ah, love that.
conversations
Yeah.
and I'd be supportive. I wounldn't like I'd want to know what's going on in their lives. And what I found was is how what I modeled for them that was the most important. Because like for a while, because when I was early in my second marriage, I was such a nice guy. I rarely went out and did anything. I was always sticking around trying to make my wife happy. But then I said, no, I'm going to start playing basketball on Monday night. So going to the gym. I take my boys with me. Even if they were just running around the gym, it didn't matter. They were with me. When I started going to the gym to work out, I'd take them along. And my son was an AAU weightlifting champion at 15.
Yeah.
When I'd go camping or fishing, they'd go. When I'd go with my guy friends to a baseball game, I'd take my sons. And so
That's awesome.
I really do believe that that is so crucial. And whether we're talking about sons or daughters, for the father to have that relationship. Now, one of the things that Dr. Farrell talked about last night, he said, unfortunately, the traits that make a man a good protector provider, go get the degree, go excel in business, go be an entrepreneur, go be the CEO, go lead the sales team, don't actually necessarily make him a good nurturer connector. And of course, that's really our kids need some of both. They
Yep.
need to have our nurturing, connecting side. But I think for especially our sons, they also need to see that side of us that is out living up to our full potential. Because I know, for example,
Yeah.
my son and stepson were teenagers when I was writing No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about 6, 7 years to write it. So I'd write a bunch and then I wouldn't for a while. And then I'd write some more and then not. And I remember they were basically saying, Pops, when are you going to finish that book? There's a lot of people out there need the
Wow.
book. They go, I got friends, our 16-year-old buddies need
Yeah.
the book. And,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, I got stuck towards the end where it's pretty much done. And I got stuck. I just couldn't move it over the finish line. I had to go back into therapy to figure out how to finish my book.
Wow.
And what it came down to is I think it was primarily a fear of success. Will I live up to the expectations? Will I go on Oprah? Will it be a bestseller? Will it be worth will anybody even care? Right. So I got into therapy and over time we explored. I didn't set out to write a book. I was just writing chapters to give to my clients and my No More Mr. Nice Guy groups so that they would understand what I was learning about nice guy syndrome.
Right.
And my therapist said, why don't you just complete that? I go, I don't have to publish it. No, just complete it to where you can just hand it to your clients. I go, I can do that. Which then, of course, once I completed it, the next step. But you know what?
I
This
think
this is
you owe
about,
that
I
therapist some
really,
royalties, maybe. With the world owes them
yeah,
thanks.
I actually I give her a thanks in the book. She's in there.
That's fine.
But my boys were about 16, 17 at that time.
Uh-huh.
And actually one of my prime motivators was before my boys graduate from high school, I want them to know that their father followed through and completed a major project that was significant to me, significant to them, and that they knew was a game changer in the world. Because I could have just let it sit on a shelf. How many people have written books that the manuscript's sitting in a drawer somewhere? It's on a hard drive, on a floppy
Yeah,
disk somewhere. It's been
for
so long
sure.
since they looked at it.
Yeah,
And I didn't want to
it's
do that to my
incredible.
sons. I didn't want to say, oh, here's my role model of how to live life, get a great idea, put my heart and soul into it, and then don't see it through to
And not
fruition.
see
I
it through.
wanted to complete that. So I did that for my boys. And not only am I grateful I did it for them, I'm grateful I did it for the world. I mean, here we are talking
Yeah,
25 years
exact.
later because I finished the book.
That was a great forcing function, having the kids. Like I feel that way a lot of times about number one motivator, is like
Yeah.
do at the
Kid,
when you don't
kids
feel
will,
like
kids will
doing something.
motivate you.
Yeah, and just they help you get you right because you're like, oh, now I gotta live up to like be a good model too for them. And of course it's
Yeah.
not what you say, it's what you do. Um,
It is. That's the best gift you can give your kids is you live at your full potential. And that's not just provider protector. It's also that nurturer connector. And my thought is it's not going to be a 50-50 balance. I actually think, depending on your temperament, a lot of us nice guys really are nurturer connectors. When my kids were young, my second wife and I, she was a therapist as well. And so we set up our businesses where we basically both worked 3/4 time, where one of us was always home when the kids got home from school and home in the evening. And
Mhm.
at that point in my life, I was really more of the nurturer connector than the go-getter driven. I've actually become a lot more driven as I've gotten older. I think as you get older, you kind of realize I'm on the clock. If this is important to get done, I better get it done. But at the same time,
Mhm.
raising my stepkids, they're 18 and 16. I came into their life about 8 years ago. Um, when I came into their life, I didn't speak their first language. They're Mexican. They're
Uh-huh.
Spanish speakers. I was just learning to get somewhat. So I still can't have a deep conversation with my kids. My Spanish has gotten good enough. My wife and I speak all in Spanish.
Oh,
I did
good.
2 interviews this week in Spanish. I was really proud
Oh,
of
for
myself.
real? Wow. That's
For real.
pretty
I
fluent.
I'm pretty impressed. 10 years ago, I'd have my
I
phone
mean,
out
you've
all
had
the time.
immersion, right? Because you've been in New Mexico for a while.
Right. I'm in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
Good,
So,
good, good, good.
other than doing stuff
I
on
love
Zoom,
it.
I speak Spanish all day.
Good.
So, but here's what I learned about my kids, my stepkids especially. I don't have to give them a lot of my time. But when I'm with them, I hug them both a lot. My 18-year-old son likes my hugs as much as my 16-year-old daughter does. They love it. So in a sense, I almost parent them like a grandparent, like I do my 17-year-old granddaughter. Lots of love, lots of affection, lots of how was your day, hugs, and you know what? Even if that's just a few minutes out of the day, I think
Mhm.
that makes a really big difference on children. I don't know that they need dad to be there 8 hours a day, 4 hours a day,
Right,
even two
right.
hours a day. But like I said, when I can drive my boys to a sporting event or to school, and can just eavesdrop and listen to their conversations, listen to the music that they listen to. Or like when I was with my granddaughter a year ago, we were driving somewhere, her and I. And I said, well, you can pick the music. And she goes, no, it's okay. We can listen to what you want. And I go, if you were driving in the car all by yourself, what would you listen to? She goes, Kanye. I go, okay. And so I said, school me on Kanye. And so I got a little bit of education on Kanye West. And that's about the time he was getting kind of blown up for,
Yeah, right, right,
losing
right.
his brands and his kind of
Yep. The
anti-Semitic comments.
anti-Semitic comments. Mhm.
And so, I go, okay, this is what my granddaughter listens to. I got educated, but
Good artist though. Good artist.
it takes time. Yeah, it takes time to know your kids. So it
You're
does
connecting
take
with
some
them.
time.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
making they're making the effort to connect. And that's amazing. Yeah, I do coaching, with with both my kids, but especially more my son because
great.
daughter does more gymnastics, the feminine like gymnastics, ballet, dance, etc. That's where their girlfriends, they hold hands, dolls, all that. She's 5. My son, he's 6. It's boys. He just told me I want to be a soccer player like Messi.
Yeah.
How many goals he have. He
My
wanted
my
to be
my,
a
my
spy.
daughter,
He's a spy, a
a
police
spy. Yeah.
officer. He's wants to
There you
fight all the
go.
time.
My
You got to
my
watch out.
daughter just got new soccer shoes last night. She took
Yeah.
them out to show me. They were messy branded
Nice,
soccer shoes.
nice.
But my daughter was like, yeah, she's performing tomorrow at the end of the year. She's really into dance, performing type dance, and
Oh, awesome, awesome.
she's good at it, and she may be really good at it. Whereas my son, he's got a business mind. He and his girlfriend have launched a business where they've got a boutique. They sell women's clothes at 18. And they go and buy the clothes that the women are in demand at a discount. And so, I'll go watch my daughter dance, give her lots of love. I gave her love today because she was practicing. And I'll
Yeah,
ask my son, how's the business going? How are you doing? And so it really
that's
just
great.
takes a little bit of time. And I'll say it again, I think the biggest gift, we can give them is to see us living up to our full capabilities, our full potential.
Yeah. So this is living up to our full capability potential. Let's double click here because having kids in the first place, learning a new language, moving to a different country, like these are challenges.
Yeah.
Going to get your degree, all your degrees. You talk a lot about challenge and just. I'm thinking, what are the other ways we can become that integrated man? Of course, past hugging, giving them a hug, not just trying to push them away. I love that we talk about that. And then taking on challenges, just saying yes, um saying what's on our mind. Like what are some other kind of tips you have for people, for men to be that integrated man, to get to
You know,
that
I
place,
there are
that sweet
a
spot?
lot of pieces, of course. I'm convinced, one thing I say in No More Mr. Nice Guy, don't try to do this alone. Go find safe people to support you, safe people to release shame,
Oh,
safe people
true.
to get a more
Community.
a community to get a more accurate story of who you are, to know that you're not alone, you're not terminally unique. But I'll do workshops here in my office. I'll have 8 guys here. Friday night, we'll just spend 3 hours getting to know each other. By the end of Friday night, all the guys are going, "This is amazing. I don't feel alone. I didn't know I was the only person that struggled with this. I don't feel so defective. I feel actually very supported." And so I think to do anything of significance, most people need a team. We need a posse. We need a tribe. To try to do things alone is just so limiting. But
Yeah.
for most of the nice guys, we're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of being not knowing everything. We're afraid of, oh, well, other people won't do it exactly like I'll want it done. And the truth is, a lot of times they'll do it better than what we can do it. But I know for me, I always struggled.
Or what would they think? It's worried about
Well,
what they might think and judging.
what might they think? And I know I was like that. I never went out and got mentors or
Yeah.
coaches. But now, for example, about 6, 8 months ago, I thought, I want to meditate regularly. I've tried before, never got the habit of it. I thought, well, trying to do it on my own isn't working. So I hired a meditation coach. And there's a guy that one of my
Nice.
normal Mr. Nice Guy coaches is living on the compound, not real far from you, but Gainesville area. We talked with
Oh
Michael
yeah.
with Michael
F
Singer.
there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So I thought,
Okay.
okay, if he's living on the compound with Michael Singer, who's all about,
Yeah.
meditation so he and
Sure.
I he coached me on it. He gave me an app. We check in every day. I got 100 consecutive days of at least 20 minutes a day of meditation. Trying to do that by myself, I'd never done it. I've never done anything else for 100 consecutive
Yeah.
days, but with a coach, I did it.
That's
Then
amazing.
earlier this year, we're talking to each other in mid-June. So earlier this year, my men's program, a couple of the coaches launched a fitness challenge, a 2 month fitness challenge. I signed up for it, and I noticed some changes. I got a little stronger, stomach went down a little bit. I'm 68, so I felt good. And I thought, you know what? I want to take this to the next level. So in one of my workshops, I just mentioned I need to find a nutrition coach. Two of the guys go, I know one. One was a trainer, so he knew coaches. The other one was a guy in there who's working with this coach. So I started working with his coach, and she's not only is she a former professional swimsuit model competitor, so I mean just strong, lean. She also has a master's degree in gerontology. She primarily works with men, around my age. And
Wow.
so I've been working with her for about 2 months now. And I count macros, I put them in the app. She has protein levels I've got to hit, calories I stay within. She's had me doing level 2 cardio, 7 days a week.
Oh,
And
nice.
and
Oh, that's
I'm
why you've been
now
looking so like jacked
well,
and
I'm
leaner.
looking so good. I'm
Yeah.
getting leaner. Yeah, I haven't gotten
You're
jacked yet, but
good.
I'm getting
Yeah.
I get leaner, but yeah, because of a lot of travel, I haven't been hitting the weights for a while.
Ah, okay, okay.
But I now weigh. I haven't weighed this amount, this low amount in 15 years. And back then, I was more jacked, and I had a trainer then, a coach. So I'm a big fan. Don't go it alone. Get a coach, get a mentor, get a men's group, get a support
Yeah.
system. I have accountability groups for writing, for exercise. I have a group of guys I meet with every other week on Zoom. We've been meeting together for 6 years. We're committed for life to just check in with each other every other week. How you doing? Where do you need support? Where do you need accountability? That I think is the most powerful way we break out of our nice guy patterns.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I remember when you talked about like 25 years ago or so when you began the nice guy recovery, I think is how you called it, from nice
Yeah.
guy syndrome.
Yeah.
You said like the in the beginning it was going to 12-step group. You had a someone else there that you're like, let's do a gratitude list. No,
Yeah.
list
That was
things we're grateful for, which
powerful.
is an amazing way to just feel happier. Number one of the top things in the happiness tool is like gratitude, of course, and just taking that perspective and as well as just being more present, right? And then you said now you look at like your mission's still there. It's like integrated nation. That's
Yeah.
really the mission, right? Like to try to bring men together
Yeah,
and do not do it alone.
I've always been about community. Whether it's, I was leading 5 men's groups a week when I was in private practice back in Seattle. I've always done workshops, retreats. And, when someone suggested to me about 3 years ago, I need to launch a men's membership program. I thought, well, what's that? And the more I looked at it, the more I thought, yeah, it's exactly what I'm all about. At that time, I was actually kind of toying with the idea of semi-retirement. Maybe just, spend more time in the RV and, write some more books. And then I took like a 3 month sabbatical, it'd be 3 years ago this summer, where I didn't do interviews, didn't see clients, and it was good. I mean, I enjoyed it, and it was very relaxing and rejuvenating. I was also working on that Big Stick book and getting that finished as well. But then I came back. Okay, I wanted to convert some of my courses to video, and then that's when this person suggested that I do a membership program. And so I thought, about we launched a year ago, but about 2 years ago, when I saw the commitment it's going to take, I thought I can't toy with the idea of semi-retirement and be a CEO of a startup. And it is a startup. I've got several employees. I got 30 coaches working with me. We're about 600 members of the program, and so it's startup mode still. I thought, no, I'm in it for the next 20 years. My mother just turned 89. I thought, okay, at 80, 87, 88, 90, whatever, my body, that's one reason I got the nutrition coach. I thought,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to do what I can to take care of this vessel. And then,
Hmm.
if my destiny and the fate is, okay, I'll be around in 20 years because this is my legacy. If I can create a platform where every man on the planet who wants to be in a men's program has access to mine or somebody else's, I want that to happen. That's my dream. That's my vision. That's my legacy.
Yeah.
So,
Beautiful.
I'm gonna take good care of myself, and I'm in it for the next 20 years. And it's kind of like my wife gets to see that. She's inspired by it. My stepkids are, my son is, my granddaughter, the people in my program. The guys tell me all the time, Robert, you're such a great role model. Because not only are you still doing what you believe in, what your purpose, but you have enthusiasm, you have energy, yeah,
You do.
you have a nutrition coach,
Yeah, it makes
so
sense now. Nutrition, exercise, doing all the things to like keep yourself
getting
healthy,
getting
energy.
good sleep at night, I track that. I just, okay, if my purpose, if I'm here to put a big dent in the cosmos, if I'm here to make a difference in the world,
You already
I got to
have.
bring my A game. I got to bring my A game to that.
You have already big time, big time. Yeah, and that's one of the top things I took away from your interviews, your books is like connecting with people because I think part of nice guy syndrome is also like we talked about not wanting to be vulnerable, not wanting to
Yeah,
share what's our shame, our toxic shame. It's keep it, hold it, and then there's this thing going on culturally. I know that loneliness epidemic. There's more technology than
yeah,
ever. We're more connected, and it has some good
yeah.
uses like this where we can connect. But people are texting, right? Young people, especially. You know, I feel bad for them, like because for us, the internet came on. These cell phones came like when we were already grown. It's
Yeah.
like for them, they're growing up, and they're like the fish in the water. They're like, what water? They don't even know any different
Yeah,
that it
they don't know
could
there are fish
be
swimming in water. Yeah.
that they could go like meet in person more. But I think it's like 10 or 20 cigarettes, the equivalent of loneliness on the lifespan get being reduced is like the equal of like half or to a pack of
Yeah.
cigarettes a day. And culturally, like our culture in Mexico, that as great as America is, I'm a veteran. I love uh America, number one. But like it's very individualistic sometimes, which is good in the ways you said before. Like you could do your
Mhm.
thing, you could take it to the highest level, anything's possible. But
Right.
sometimes like that communal, that village, it could be protective on the loneliness side of it at least, and just having
We,
purpose and
we,
meaning and with family. So what kind of uh treatment, I guess, do you have, you think, for our young people that are kind of growing up in this culture? Like what kind of prognosis do you have, and what do you think we could do about that?
you know, I agree with everything that you've said. Just before you, I did an interview with a 19-year-old who's, just starting his first podcast. He's in college, and he brought up COVID and what I thought, my opinion
Mm,
was the effect of COVID on
yeah.
especially young people. And I said, well, you tell me, well, how did it affect you? He was in high school at the time. He's 19 right now. And we talked about that. And I said, and I talked with him about this epidemic of loneliness. And while some of this isolation, and it's really an epidemic in men, and, some of it may be due to circumstance beyond people's control. I actually think for a lot of people, it's choice that men make this choice. And because it's easy to make the choice. I was talking with this young podcaster at 19. They grew up with the internet. They grew up with smartphones. They had smartphones in their hands when they were
Yeah.
babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like your kids probably know how to work your phone
Yeah.
better than
Yep.
you do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you want to learn how to do something on your phone, ask a kid to do it. You ask them to show you. So, they've got social media. They can be on the internet. They can be binging on Netflix. They can be, spending time on porn sites, nonstop. Um, Everything's there. And I asked him, I said, so what do you do when you need like an in-person mentor or a coach or someone to give you direction or feedback or insight? And they go, oh, there's podcasters that we watch. And he mentioned
Yeah.
a couple who both I know both of them. So, they're high quality
Yeah. Yeah.
podcasters at least. But, could it be could it be
Red
Andrew,
pill kind of.
could it be
Yeah.
Red
Red
Pill,
pill.
Andrew
Yeah.
Tate,
Mm-hmm.
whatever? And
Manosphere.
so what was happening is, yeah, a lot of these young men, I call it hanging out in the nursery. And even tie it back to that seeking feminine approval. I mean, it makes sense if our first caretaker was a woman, first babysitter, nanny, school
Ooh, yeah,
teachers
that
were
makes so much
women,
sense. Mm-hmm.
that we'd grow up to be trying to please women. And really where the situation where I see where to shift this is around masculine initiation. Our forefathers were initiated into masculinity. Maybe we're going back several generations, a few hundred, a few thousand years, by other masterful men.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas nowadays, like I said, we were talking about maybe our dad was a nice guy and all he taught us was don't piss off your mom. Maybe he wasn't available. Maybe he worked all the time. Maybe he was an addict. Most young men have never had meaningful, safe, trustworthy men help them break that tie to the feminine, of approval seeking of the feminine, their mother. Maybe military can do it, sports maybe can do it, but most men don't get that initiation. And purely it was meant to do two things: to sever the tie of approval seeking of the feminine, introduce them into the frightening world of the masculine, to face their fear of death, to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and to learn to depend on a tribe to go get the job done that needed to be done. And that's just not happening for younger men. And because everything just gets pushed to them through television, through internet, through social
Yeah.
media, everything's pushed. They have access to all the pot they want, all the alcohol they want, all
It's
the
a little bit,
junk food they
unfortunately,
want.
like the good times make soft men stage right now. Or good
It's easy.
times make soft people, and soft people make tough times. Like, unfortunately, that's kind of the stage of the cycle we're probably in.
And as you said, that loneliness or isolation takes a toll. And it's kind of like, for example, if you're a smoker, you might see some external effects of your smoking. Maybe you see it on your fingernails, or maybe you see it wrinkles on your skin, but you don't see like the effect it has on your cardiovascular system. You just don't see that 10 to 20 or pack or two of cigarettes a day, what it's doing internally.
Sure.
And loneliness is that same thing. When you're in the state of loneliness, you can't observe, well, this is killing me at a younger age, or this is leading to depression. I'm more
It's
likely to
even
commit
more
suicide.
insidious. Like, and then the thing is, as a psychologist, with depression, you're just gonna withdraw more, and anxiety, and this was like this vicious cycle. Now you feel more worthless, hopeless.
Yeah.
Then
So
you
you
have a
try,
bunch of men just checked out, unfortunately. And I know you know them. I
unfortunately.
know them.
And here's what I found. I found that when men get the opportunity to experience authentic masculine connection. I'll give you an example. I mentioned I was up in Northern California last week at a leadership / music festival.
Mhm.
And I led a presentation for just people on relationships, and then I did a program with men. And it was just really, pretty unstructured. Me and a couple other guys led it, where we just paired everybody up. It was about 40 guys. And we said, all right, talk about your strengths, a current struggle, and what you want to leave here this week with. What kind of plan do you want in place? And then we actually went for this hike up through the woods, crossed a log across a river ravine. And I was scared. I think everybody else was too, because if you fell, you get
Yeah.
hurt. Nobody fell. Everybody crossed it. We got out into this big opening. There were vultures circling around. And we gave each person who had been paired up with another person in front of the whole circle, each person, each couple, each pair of guys said what they most appreciated about the other in 30 seconds or less. And we around the circle did that. And then, it's just kind of a basic men connecting with men. It wasn't terribly, in my mind, deep or profound, but it was just, but you know what? Several guys over the next few days came to me, Robert, that was so profound. That was so deep. That was so amazing. I've just
Yeah.
never experienced that
Yeah.
kind of connection with men. And I'm thinking, really? And I'm thinking there are guys out there, because another quick
Yeah.
example, you're into psychedelics. I was invited 3 years ago to be the guest speaker at the first ever men's retreat at Rhythmia Retreat Center, ayahuasca retreat center down in Costa Rica. And so I got down there
Oh yeah.
thinking
It's the
all the
best.
men coming there were coming because they knew the value of men's program. Maybe they'd read my book or read David Data, or,
Right.
they knew,
Right. Right.
and they
Right.
get there. The majority of them just, that was just the best week for them to go. And it happened to be men's week. By the end of the week, they're saying, Robert, this is amazing. I never knew, just being that, there were no women there. My wife and maybe a few workers were about the only women on this entire, and it's
Wow.
guys being with guys, and they go, this is actually really cool to hang out with the guys, no distraction from the
Yeah.
women, not distracted by them in their thong bikinis, not trying to impress them, not trying to get their approval. This was great, just being with guys. So once guys experience it, they get hooked. They get hooked,
Yeah.
especially if they're a little bit, if they'll take that risk and be vulnerable. All it takes is one guy to be vulnerable
No
for the
doubt.
next guy. One guy share his struggle with pornography, and all of a sudden another guy shares, and another guy shares. And by the end of the night, the end of the day, the end of the week, there's like it's like we've been frat brothers for 20 years. We've known each other since we were in high school, just because we spent some time being vulnerable with each other.
Yeah. And in a way, and especially for nice guys, you want to, as you said, go to safe guys, not to women, because again, you'll be naturally wanting the validation, maybe trying to sleep with them, etc. If you do it with
Oh,
the
really?
guys,
That
you
happens.
said, I've heard, so I've heard. So sometimes, you're kind of like filtering a little bit, what you shouldn't, but that's kind of, if you're not totally at that integrated place yet, you
Yeah.
might be. You go, as you said, go tell the thing that what would you not want to share, that you need to work on. Go tell
Yeah.
it in a safe
Then you won't
place.
share
That's
in
the
front
best
of
way to work
women.
through it.
Yeah,
Correct.
you won't share that in front of you will do it with guys.
And I got to give you a ton of credit, because I mean, you've come on the air to the world and said some like disclosures that you opened up about it, which, or to the world, and you're like, I'm comfortable with that because I've talked about it already with my
Yeah.
tribe. And
My
like,
tribe knows everything.
and how freeing is that then? Like when you first kind of said those things that you wouldn't tell anyone else.
Oh yeah, that's just so liberating. You've probably heard me talk about my quote, nice guy recovery began 30 years ago in a 12-step group for sex addicts. I quickly found out I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex
Right.
addict, but I'd go every week and just reveal stuff about me I'd never told anybody. I grew up in a fundamental Christian church with an angry, critical father, with a mother who wanted me to be different from my father, with the angry feminism that every man's a rapist. And so I kept everything in. And for the first time in my life, just revealing that stuff. So I still do that today. I still have a group of men around me that if there's something that I don't really want to tell them, I tell them. And then
Yeah.
once I tell them, it's kind of like, what was the big deal? They know me. They know everything about me. I'm not going to tell any of my buddies, any of my support crew, anything that they don't already know. And so, but it's funny, we'll get caught up in this. Well, I'm not sure I want anybody to know this. But once you get it out, it's so liberating. You're free. You're free. And
Yeah.
and
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 these,
then you live life on your terms.
that's amazing. Over here in Jacksonville, for instance, we have this project outdoor. I'm a veteran, and really trying to help vets. The mental health crisis particularly hits, as you know, that group hard.
Yeah. My
Uh,
son's a vet.
Okay, got you. Yeah. And so, and a lot, then they have family issues also related to the PTSD, and they no longer have the comrades that they had overseas. A lot miss it, actually. They were back at home. That's the transition itself. So having these kind of groups where let's get together and do fishing and just hike instead of like, as you know, men coming to the office and doing one-on-one, it doesn't happen as much as women because it's not
Yeah,
as masculine a thing as let's go talk while we're fishing together, or
yeah.
like while we're having a
Shared
drink together.
activity. You know,
Yeah.
somebody wrote me this week, sent me an email. It really intrigued me because, like I said, my son's a vet. He was in Fallujah in Iraq, in the Marines. And yeah, I've seen the PTSD and how it's affected him, and he's doing well. But I can
That's
see the effect. And a guy wrote me an email, and he said there's a program that I think the VA is a part of, or maybe it's even an independent organization that works with vets, where they organize walks like along the Appalachian Trail,
nice.
and where you just with buddies walking for days, weeks, months, however long it takes you to do this thing. And I know I a couple of good books I like by an author named Sebastian Younger. He wrote a book called Tribe, and he interviewed a lot of veterans for
Tribe.
that. And I like that book a lot. He wrote another book called Freedom. And the book Freedom was him and four or five, maybe six different men hiking a trail. I don't think it was the Appalachian Trail, but it was like Ohio area. But it's an old trail, often along railroads. And he said it wasn't the same like five, six guys for the entire trip, but he was a constant. They had a dog with them, but it was always three or four or five guys. And the book's about just telling the story of that walking together. There's the physical toll it took, the connection it created, some of the dangers they ran into. But the thing that kept standing out to me, that often when they'd stop in some little town, get something to eat, get some water, fresh provisions, take a shower, people would be looking at them. Who are these four or five guys just, passing through our town? And, men and boys would start conversations with them. And repeatedly, once the men and boys knew what they were doing, they'd look
They
and say,
join.
can you take us with you? Can you
Oh,
take us with
wow.
you? They wanted to go be part of that tribe of men
Yeah.
doing something challenging together. And just the camaraderie, the connection, getting a little bit off the grid, maybe getting away from
Yeah.
having to please
Did
the
you
women
did
all the
you
time.
did you ever
It's
watch
just,
the show White Lotus on HBO?
I don't know. I
Oh,
don't
it's a
watch
really
much
good one. Oh,
TV. I
gotcha.
don't
Okay,
know it.
okay. I'll just tell you like a little bit. There's this
Tell me about it.
one, the boy. This was like a really good show, really suspenseful, great acting on HBO Max, I guess they call it now. And Sydney Sweeney's in it, some really big actors, really good actors. And so what the boy who's like just on this Hawaii trip, he's not enjoying it at all. He's just like whatever. They talk about him fapping a lot. He's just trying to say to himself, he can't get girls. He's like a nice guy, you could
Yeah.
say, quintessential. And so he goes with this tribe like on boating, like one of they're in Hawaii, in
Like going out
Maui.
on a
So
canoe.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So very similar. Like he in this way, in a tropical way, he went with they're like Hawaiian, Samoan. He went on this boat ride, canoe ride with them, and then he had like a great time. He felt like a new man, I guess. He's like experienced emotions. I know
Hmm.
you've talked about like it could be numb for a nice guy, like kind of a
Oh, yeah.
low grade depression. He was able to come out of that. He's at joy. He stayed. Everyone else went back. He stayed. And at the end, he's rowing. And it's like he's the one, he's the happy ending in the story. And why?
Yeah.
Because he joined a tribe of men. So this
Yeah.
is what I
I
was thinking
love
about.
that.
Like, or
I will
like
have to check that out. I like that a lot.
you'll like
We
it.
need
You'll
the
really like it.
tribe. Our ancestors existed in tribes. It's really only been since World War II that men spent all that much time around women. Even if you were married, you didn't spend all that much time around your wife. You were out working, whether it's an agrarian society or if you worked in a factory. And it's really only after World War II when the men went off to fight. Women came into the factories to build the munitions, the planes, the bombs. Men came back from the war. The women, some went back home, some stayed working. Women started getting degrees. And I'm not saying we should go back to anything other, where we are. Let's move forward. But my point is, this is the first time in all of human history that men spend most of their time around women and very
Yeah.
little of their time around men.
Yeah, and I know
And
you're in this mission, like, when you have get-togethers, is it like where you're getting together and doing activities? Because that seems to be, as we kind of talked about, men wired less to maybe disclose about emotional stuff when they ask men, women. It's all the women raising their hand. Did you share anything emotional that happened to you recently? No guys, or maybe one
okay,
guy will raise their hand in the right.
why do we do that?
And
Yeah,
then we
you know
wonder
what?
why, like, so many, it's testosterone too, of course, but we wonder why school shooters, fights, it tends to be more boys. There's
It
other
is.
reasons too, but a
It
lot
is.
is like they're not talking about what's bothering them and so on. So I was wondering, like, is the way to get that is activity? Like, because when I'm hanging with guys, it's like we're going to do things together, sports, whatever. Then it leads to, like, we go to dinner and we talk or have drinks. We're talking. Like, it's kind of
There,
almost connected to those doing those activities.
there's
And is
no
that something
right.
you
There's no right
incorporate?
way. No right way. I think anything that gets you connected to, especially other conscious men, not just men where we're going to, sit around and drink and objectify women and swear a lot. I mean,
Sure, sure, sure.
I like all those things. There's nothing wrong with them. But
Sure.
we're
Not just
more
that.
than that. We're
Right.
not just that. And so, but yeah, when I tell men starting out, what do you like doing? All right, go find a group of men that's doing that. Is it running? Is it hiking? Is it fishing? Is it playing sports? So like I mentioned, back in my second marriage when I started really kind of breaking out of just having to be there all the time around my wife to because she felt anxious anytime I go out. I started, playing softball with guys. I like playing softball, joined a racquetball league. I started working out at the gym, got in a fitness challenge, started with some guys taking road trips, go watch baseball, different cities around the country. And it was shared activity. In that process, we tell the dumb guy jokes, that's what guys do. We get a joke, you get a joke going and you tell the same
Yeah.
version of it multiple times in different contexts. But you know what? The guys would show up, bring their unique gifts, like we're on a road trip. One guy worked for the airline, so he'd kind of get us standby tickets. Another guy also traveled a lot, so he knew he could get his hotel rooms booked. I was good at buying tickets from scalpers at the ballpark, so I kind of took on that role. Everybody kind of played a role. And
Yeah.
we did talk about our
It's a team.
relationships. We talked about, we're on the airplane, yeah, my wife's just been nagging at me lately. Not victim complaining, but kind of like I feel bad and I don't know how to make her happy. And it wasn't like just playing victim role that
Yeah,
the
it can
poor
get
me, my
vulnerable.
wife
Yeah, they
need.
want to make a
It was
change for better
it was more
for the
like
cause.
I don't know what to do different. I don't know how to make her
Yeah,
happy. And
right.
so I know my now ex-wife used to tell me I'd come home from these trips, and she goes, "I'm really attracted to you when you come home." It's just because I was around men and that masculine energy. And this is a woman who wasn't attracted to me very often during the marriage. But if I went and spent time with guys, it had an impact on just her emotional nervous system. So there's no right way.
So
Uh,
that shows that you
I
were like being the higher masculine from being with these men, and then
yeah,
your
it
women's, of
it
course,
rubs
prefer you
off.
talk about your relationship with them and a way to improve and share and get guidance from each other. We all got our own strengths and weaknesses, and you're not going to share that with a woman necessarily. It's going to complicate the relationship
Yeah,
potentially,
well,
and
I'm a big
it's
fan.
going to masculine.
Talk to your buddies first, then bring it to your woman. And
They like that.
because with your buddies, they're not going to judge you, you're not going to hold anything back. Then bring it to your woman because you've already worked through a lot of the emotions of it. But again, no right way. This could be a 12-step group. It could be, a men's therapy group. It could be a divorce recovery group. It could be, the dojo where you go do the Brazilian jiu-jitsu and then talk to some guys afterwards. When I used to go to salsa classes, I'd go early and stay late to talk to the men because you talk to all the women. They all circle around in front of you.
Yeah,
But the men you don't know because you all stay in the
yeah.
outside. So I met men by doing that. I met one guy and and he was really into, like pick up and going out. And so, I would go out, we'd have a good time together and, we'd practice talking to women. But I met him because I talked to the guys at the salsa class. So it could be any kind of program, with men where men just be themselves. And
Yeah.
one example is I went to this is years ago. I went to a speed dating program, and
Uh-huh.
this was when I was in Seattle. And I knew one of the guys there. He's actually one of my clients. So afterwards, he and I were talking, and he knew a guy, and that guy knew a guy that was there. So we got done with speed dating, and the five of us went out and had a drink together. We went there to meet women, and we
Yeah.
ended up five guys. And I was the youngest one of the group. I was probably about 50 at that time. So I'm the youngest guy. They're all older than me. And we said, let's get together once a month. Let's just go to a happy hour. Let's just go meet. And we would just get together just to be guys hanging out. And one time we were in downtown Seattle on a summer day, early afternoon, happy hour, just the five of us sitting at a round table, people coming in and out of the bar because it's down what's called Belltown, and it's a nice day. So the outdoor eating area. And these young women are coming in and out. And we're about to leave. And the waitress comes over with a tray of kamikazes. And we go, who are these from? And then the waitress says, the women at the bar. These women were all in their early
They loved
20s,
it.
probably barely legal. We didn't talk to them. We hadn't interacted. We were just five guys at a table. And we called the women over and said, why'd you send us drinks? He said, you guys just look so cool. Like you're having such a good time. And we just wanted to be a part of that. And we go, well, come talk to us. And we chatted with them a little bit, and then we kind of moved on. But there's just something about just guys being guys, comfortable in their own skin, living a life on purpose, having a good time, that it's going to affect. If we're single, it's going to attract the feminine to us. If we're married, it's going to fill our wife. If we have kids, our kids are going to be drawn to that. Other men are drawn to it. But I really, I mean, you and I both believe the same thing. We got to have that tribe of men. We can't do this alone. The lone wolf doesn't make it. It won't fulfill us. I say
In this case, it's like
on
keeps you out of trouble. Sorry to interrupt. In this case, like staying out of trouble is like staying off social media. It's actually go get in some trouble. Like a lot of parents who have more
yeah,
kids,
yeah.
they're like, I want you to go like they
Go
have
be with
social
the
anxiety.
kids.
They're like, go get in some trouble. Like that's what you should do as a teen. Like you're trying to launch. They want them to launch into adulthood,
Yeah,
mostly.
go do the stupid stuff and learn from it. Yeah, I tell people I've raised daughters, I've raised sons. The daughters will drive you crazy with all the drama. The sons will drive you crazy with the stupid decision making because their prefrontal cortex hasn't finished developing. You get the call at 2 o'clock in the morning from the police department. You're gonna have to come pick your son up in the morning. Okay, take good care of him. I'll see you at 7. But I'll go back to just that need for connection on the website for Integration Nation. It says on there, wherever you're stuck, underperforming, unhappy, not living up to your full potential, the core cause is probably a lack of good men in your life. And so, I think I'll wrap this up with you that's what
Yeah.
I'll keep bringing it back to. You want to
Yeah.
level up in anywhere in life as a single man and your ability to attract women as a husband, as a father, as a businessman, as a peer, in your church, whatever it is. You need good men to help you be the best man that you can be.
And then you're not doing it for women, but that's actually, as you said, what they even want to.
Highly
Like, it'll make you
attractive.
more attractive to
Highly
them.
attractive.
It'll make you
Yeah,
not the nice guy, the integrated man. Beautiful. All right.
exactly.
And where can we find you, Robert?
Yeah, 2 spots. One is my website, drglover.com, drglover.com. That's where my courses, podcasts, workshops are. Integrationnation.net. That's my men's membership program. If you're interested in being a part of a men's program, we have like over 55 calls a month. We have in-person meetups starting now. We're starting to plan our annual conference. We're growing, guys connecting around the world. We're having fun with it. So those are the two best places, drglover.com, integrationnation.net.
Beautiful. And just a closing tradition. The last guest had a question for you, which was, what is your favorite quote, or what would be like one good quote you could drop a pearl onto the audience? One piece of
All right,
advice that you would have. And I
my
know you got a lot in your books.
my favorite quote. I'll give you my favorite quote. I got a lot of those too, a lot of favorite quotes. This one is by Meister Eckhart, a Christian mystic from 100, 200 years ago. And it's simply this: if the only prayer you say in your lifetime is thank you, that would suffice. That would suffice. Thank you. Gratitude.
I love it. Thank you. The great Robert Glover, everybody. I hope you have a good
Right.
weekend.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you.
for spending the time with me, and I had a great time talking with you. So, sounds like
It's been an honor having you.
we're doing a lot of the same work in the world. And we have a lot of the same views. So it's great to spend time with you.
Yes, sir. When I come down to Puerto Vallarta to check out the retreats there and
Look me up.
psychedelic assisted retreats, I'm gonna look you up. All right,
Look me
take
up.
care, my friend. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.